Hey there, everybody. My name is Annie.
I'm Jeremiah.
I'm Gretchen.
And we're the Annie Moses Band, and we are excited to be playing for you all today on the CCM Cafe. Music from our brand new album called Tales from My Grandpa's Pulpit. So the three of us here are just a small part of a very large family. There are 6 siblings that perform as a part of the Annie Moses Band. We grew up here in Nashville, where our parents are award-winning songwriters. And we thought for a long time, the oldest of us were going to pursue classical careers. And so we studied at the Juilliard School for a while before we started the Annie Moses Band. But down in our real lives, we loved the music of people like my grandpa, who lived in a tiny little mountain church in Oklahoma, but left a very big footprint. His life was a cool one. He was a bush pilot.
Oh, goodness, yeah. A great shot.
Yes.
A cowboy.
He was, a kind of a rancher on the side, an armchair historian, loved to discuss all forms of philosophy, theology, politics, and
all the rest of it.
All the rest of it, all combined. So he was a very cool man in that regard. But in the core of his life, he did a really exceptional work in the Kiamishi Mountains of southeastern Oklahoma, where he grew up. And it's a very dark range of mountains. And his father was murdered when he was a young man in his early 20s. And there was a great deal of crime in the area because it was a section of Oklahoma where 4 states meet. So Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas all meet right there. And there was a crime ring that was very prevalent and powerful in the area in a little strip that they called Dog Patch. And my grandfather was responsible for bringing in a sheriff to the area. My grandfather was both the preacher and the deputy sheriff for many years, but it was too hard to handle all of the law enforcement work. So he had a sheriff brought in. The sheriff was murdered in his first week of work. And he felt so terrible about it because he was a young man and he left a widow and 3 young children. And so my grandfather wrote in his newsletter about the fact that people had to speak out against the perpetrators of this crime because everyone in the community knew the people involved in it, and yet no one would speak up out of fear. And subsequently, his brand new church house was burned down. And they had picked a pretty big fight. And so in the end, the Oklahoma Bureau of Investigation and the FBI came in, and there ended up being a couple of pretty cool Clint Eastwood-style confrontations, and the murderer went to prison, and a whole lot of the crime was cleaned up in that area. But it was a very scary time for my grandfather and his family, and that experience became, I think, the core experience that led to one of his most famous phrases that he would say a lot. He would say, it ain't right to do nothing when something ought to be done. And that is a great truth for our time because we as Christians hold the light of Jesus, we hold the life, we hold the truth. And oftentimes we have this thought that it's our job to sort of be on the sidelines of life and the sidelines of the battle or the confrontation. And yet those who are out there in the middle are oftentimes victimized. The innocent are left to themselves, and those that would prey upon them need to be held to account. And so this song is one that we wrote for Grandpa. It's called In My Grandpa's Pulpit.
He had seen his daddy murdered. He had seen his mama cry. He had grown up with a meanness. He had learned to use his eyes. In the Kiamishi Mountains, buried in the briars, but Jesus came to call him and pull him from the mire. In my grandpa's He built a church at Panther Creek, underneath the pines, 2 miles from the taverns at the Oklahoma line. They burned the little church house to try and shut him down. But who can stop the gospel if the preacher stands his ground? In my grandpa's pulpit was a Bible and a gun. And when it came to sinners, he could preach from either one. He said it ain't right to do nothing when something ought to be done. So in my grandpa's pulpit was a Bible and a gun. In my grandpa's pulpit was a Bible and a gun. And when it came to sinners, he could preach from either one. He said it ain't right to do nothing when something ought to be done. So in my grandpa's pulpit was a Bible. In my grandpa's pulpit was a Bible. In my grandpa's pulpit was a Bible and a gun.